A warm welcome to today's talk. It's Friday the 5th of November. Now we want to do an update on Africa today. Is the situation actually quite good as the official data would be indicating, or is it just that the official data is a complete waste of time? Now I think it's a bit of both, but I think basically this video is basically fairly good news. Now 2016, the population of Africa was 1.2 billion, just over 1.2 billion. Now, there's not an accurate figure for this year, actually, but it's probably 1.4 billion or slightly more. So we're dealing with an awful lot of people in Africa. What is going on there with the pandemic? We know there's a lot of health problems anyway, but particularly what's going on with the pandemic. Well, let's go to Our World in Data to start off this analysis. So here we have new daily confirmed COVID-19 cases. Now I've put the United Kingdom here, where cases thankfully are going down somewhat, which is good. Likewise, the United States, been going down for a while and levelling off. And then I've kind of put a basket of African countries under here. But we see by comparison, there's essentially no cases hardly at all in these countries. So United States there. Then this huge gap all the way down, and there we've got Tunisia, South Africa. That's the Africa average down there. Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tonga, Uganda, Zambia. So what is going on here? Has the pandemic passed these countries by, or is it simply underreporting? Let's carry on with this analysis. Share of the population fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Well, if the numbers are very low in a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Africa there as an average, it's not because of a thorough, comprehensive vaccination campaign. So here we have the vaccination figures. These are people fully vaccinated. So the United Kingdom, that's the proportion fully vaccinated there, which is well over 60%, over 70% in fact, I think now. United States, quite a bit lower, sobering thought. Tunisia, Tonga there. Then most of sub-Saharan Africa especially, a few countries here. South Africa starting to pick up, but still way lower. Then Zimbabwe, Africa average, Kenya, Zimbabwe and Uganda. So those vaccination figures we believe are pretty accurate actually. So if things are better in Africa, it's not because of good vaccinations and that we've been generous and shared our vaccine doses, to be quite honest. New daily confirmed COVID-19 deaths per million, and again United States, good to see the death rates going down but still fairly high in the States. Then the United Kingdom, and we can see the overall numbers there, but these are basically for comparators. And again, we see that the African countries way lower. Tunisia, South Africa, Africa as our average, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Tonga, very low death rates. So again, is this accurate? Now, we did look just a couple of days ago when we compared the amount of deaths that were actually officially registered. In Europe, it's at least 98% of deaths were officially registered. In Africa, it's only about 10%. So is it that this is just underreporting? We don't actually think so, but let's carry on. This actually looks like fairly good news for Africa. Now, this is the R value here, this reproductive index value. Now, this line here is 1. So anything above this, we have exponential growth. Anything below that, we actually have an exponential decay, is the way that works. So there's the 1 line there, and the United States, as we see, probably just a little bit over the 1 line there. That's the 1 line. Now it could well be slightly below. So round about 1 for the United States. Uganda, well, it's higher than the United Kingdom there, but then when we look at these other countries, Zambia, Tunisia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, these are all low growth rates, but we have to remember that this is on top of fairly high figures for the United Kingdom, but remarkably low figures for all of these other countries. So again, officially on this official data, it doesn't look like the growth rates are very high, which is again is absolutely brilliant news. Now, variant-wise, not too much data really. This is from Our World in Data. South Africa, 100%. As our old enemy now, the Delta variant, UK and the United States. So Delta variant everywhere. Now, while Our World in Data doesn't give detailed data on the variants in other parts of Africa, we do believe that it is Delta variant everywhere now. This is now a Delta variant pandemic. Then just finally in these slides, how far have we got to go? Well, if we're going to carry on the vaccination programme, this is where we are at. So share of people vaccinated against COVID-19 as of the 4th of November, as of yesterday. And this is alternative definitions of a full vaccination. So this is people having been infected with SARS coronavirus 2 and having... So these are people that have had infections plus a vaccine or 2 vaccine doses. Anyway, it's an indication of vaccine levels. So United Arab Emirates, excellent. Very high levels indeed. 97%. Canada doing well, then the United Kingdom, then the United States. This is the world average here. That is the world average. So going down. So I think actually let's clear this. Share of the people. Yeah, so the dark green is fully vaccinated. The light green is share of the people only partly vaccinated. That's correct, right? So going down, this is the world as a whole. So 39% of the population fully vaccinated, or 2 doses of vaccine rather, which we will still count as fully vaccinated. 1 dose of the vaccine, 11%. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Kenya. So only a total of, well, you can see the figures there, can't you? Most people have only had 1 vaccine dose, and even that only amounts to 6.8% of the population. Uganda, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tanzania. So if we are going to carry on with a vaccine protocol for these countries, as they are trying to do, this gives us a real graphic explanation of the amount of work still to do. And realistically, when are these countries going to get that amount of vaccine, and is it necessary? So we have these figures that show Africa looks pretty good, but are the figures questionable? Well, the data I've managed to put together indicates that these figures are probably underreported, but still reasonably accurate. Now, I want to go on to a report from Wefwafwa now, who's been doing some reports on the ground in Uganda. And he seems to be, his empirical observations on the ground. And at the moment, he's also going to be interviewing quite a few doctors in various emergency departments who seem to be consistent with this. But it seems to be verifying the very low incidence rate in Africa and the very low rate of hospitalisation and the very low rate of deaths in Africa. Now, of course, Uganda's only one part of Africa, but we're using this as a representative sample. But the data we're getting does seem to indicate that the pandemic has largely abated in Africa. Now, this is just wonderful news. Now, if it's the case, we'll be thinking about why that's the case. Is it use of other medications that are commonly used in Africa? Is it a herd immunity effect that's kicked in early? Is it the younger demographic in Africa? Because the average age in a lot of African countries is only about 20, 21, 22, which was clearly a factor. Is it cross-immunity from other viruses and parasitic diseases in Africa? Probably all of these things. But either way, it's looking like it's pretty good news. Now let's go on to the report from Wefwafwa directly on the ground now.
Hello everyone, I'm Wefwafwa Andrew, a clinical officer from Uganda, and I'm here to talk about the COVID-19 situation in Uganda as per today. Now, in the past few weeks, I moved around Uganda, mostly in the major towns in Uganda. So I started with the Kampala, which is the capital city of Uganda. Then I went to Jinja, Mbale, Soroti, Lira, and then Gulu. So in all these towns, there's something that I saw that is interesting. Many people in these towns have stopped following the standard operating procedures or the preventive measures for COVID-19. People no longer social distance, people are not putting on masks, and many people don't wash their hands. And many people are gathering now that they relaxed the lockdown and they allowed people to fellowship, and then they also allowed people to carry out functions like weddings with a maximum number of 200 people as long as they are following standard operating procedures. But that doesn't happen. I have visited about 3 functions where people gather in numbers over 200, and you hardly get even 50 people putting on their masks. But there is something interesting beyond these observations. When you look at the data from the Ministry of Health Uganda, it shows that despite that people are not following all these standard operating procedures, you will see that the numbers of COVID-19 still have been kept under control. This has been shown by the positive rate and the numbers generally. Before they relaxed the lockdown, you could find that the positive rate was above 20%, and there is a time it went even up to 30%. But after they relaxed the lockdown, and then I've observed that people are reluctant about the OSOPs, but still you can see that now the positive rate has actually dropped. It is very low. You find that now these days we have a positive rate of 1%. There's a time we even had a positive rate of 0.5%. So we usually have 1, 2, 2.5, 3%. Generally, the positive rate has reduced. That means the rate of infection in Uganda has reduced. Now, I want to try to explain these observations. One, I'm thinking that there is a possibility of herd immunity. Now, in the beginning, people in Uganda here, when COVID had just started, I think we started reporting about COVID-19 in March 2020. People were worried about COVID-19. And then another thing, people didn't have protective gears like masks, gloves. This was a problem not only in the general public, but also even in government hospitals and private hospitals. Because as you know, COVID just landed and we were not prepared enough. So I believe that a lot of people were exposed, and because of fear, many people didn't go to the hospital because during that time when you get COVID-19, they could, quarantine your whole family, and then they take you somewhere where you could get treatment. So many people had signs, but they feared to go to the hospital. So I have come to believe that maybe some people who got COVID-19 never got tested, and they never got treated from the hospital. So many people were infected and then they healed. So because of that, they have developed some sort of protection against COVID-19. And so because many people didn't have enough protective gears, so I believe many people were exposed, and now they have developed what they call herd immunity. And when there is herd immunity, even the few who are not protected ends up getting protected just because a large portion of the population is immune against the virus. And then another explanation that I have for this is there is a possibility of cross immunity. And now here in Uganda and in Africa generally, people suffer from a lot of viral respiratory tract infections, and they don't get treated. And most of them just heal on their own. One, because most of them don't have money, so you suffer and then you get healed. The body takes over. So probably there is a possibility that protection from other viral infections could be helping in this state. Then another thing, there may be a possibility of vaccines helping, though the vaccination rates are still very low, but it could be that it has also helped. As you know, Uganda has a population of about 40 million people, but as I talk, about 3 million doses of vaccines have been administered. So there's a possibility that the vaccines have also started helping, but that number is still very low, because we target to vaccinate around 22 million people in Uganda, but only about 3 million doses have been administered. So that doesn't mean that 3 million people have been vaccinated. Those are doses. That means it is catering for those who have received the first dose, and then those ones who have received both the doses. So that is my explanation. Now, let me conclude. So basing on my explanation and basing on the observations that I've made, Uganda is most likely to overcome COVID-19 in the nearby future should the herd immunity increase. This can be through the COVID-19 vaccination or...
Well, thanks very much for that report, Wefwafwa. It's really quite encouraging. I mean, the thing I was really encouraged about by what Wefwafwa said there was the low positivity rate. That's remarkably encouraging. So it's looking like, at least in Uganda, and Wefwafwa has recently been travelling around a lot of Uganda for work, that things are looking very good. Now, he is going to do more research on the rest of Africa, but the story there is so far so good. It's looking promising that the pandemic has largely abated in Africa, which is just remarkably good news, because we've been really worried about the pandemic causing severe problems in Africa on top of everything else. But as of now, as of November, it's actually looking fairly promising. Now, this last video clip that Wefwafwa sent is just the normal sort of market scene. A bit boring, but strangely fascinating in a strange sort of way. He put this on just to show that everything's kind of back to normal, that people aren't wearing masks, they're just congregating as normal. We'll play a few minutes of it. Thank you for watching this video.
Why? I didn't know that. Gana who amba bibindi, you know?